Hello, everyone, and welcome to this WTR Symposium Series, Eyes on Autonomy, Investing in Drones and Autonomous Vehicles. I'm your host, Shawn Severson, founding partner and CEO of Water Tower Research. I'd like to introduce my WTR research analyst, colleague, and co-host for the first installment of the symposium, Dr. John Roy, Managing Director of our Technology Research Practice. John, welcome to the conference.
Thanks, Shawn.
Next week, for our second installment, we will bring in my equity research colleague, Peter Gastreich, who is a senior analyst in sustainable and energy investing. In our special extended podcast today, we will interview management of four companies whose growth strategies are built around drones and the burgeoning autonomous vehicle market. We'll have a second segment next week with more companies. Before we get started, John, could you share a little background on our symposium podcast format?
Sure, absolutely, Shawn. So our aim with the symposium format is to package an investment theme that is relevant across multiple companies. And we invite senior management of these companies to discuss the relevancy of the theme and their business. Now, as drones are really such a diverse market, we are breaking it up into two podcasts. The first is today's session, and the second will focus on underwater vehicles and will drop next week. WTR will publish key takeaway reports. So please look for those when they come out. Now, these will include links to all of our relevant WTR research content that will help investors who want to dig in a bit deeper into the broader strategies and outlooks for these companies that are participating in this symposium. Now, remember, our content at Water Tower Research is entirely open access and can be found on our website at www.watertowerresearch.com. For those with access, investors can also find our content on research aggregators like FactSet and Bloomberg. Finally, we'd love to hear what you think about this symposium format. So please feel free to leave comments or to reach out directly to our host, Shawn, or myself on LinkedIn or by email.
Thanks, John. With the housekeeping notes out of the way, let's dig into the companies. Can you let us know who we'll be speaking with today?
Sure. For speakers, we've invited management or senior management from four listed companies, including Unusual Machines, that's ticker UMAC, SES AI, that's ticker symbol SES, Ondas Holdings, that's ticker symbol ONDS, and Micropolis Holdings, ticker symbol MCRP. Now, joining us from Unusual Machines is Dr. Alan Evans. He's the CEO. Unusual has two major thrusts. First is a first-person view of drones for consumers and the racing market. And second is their growing manufacturing business that's focused in the US. They have a major motor manufacturing facility starting up in September this year in Orlando. From SES AI, we have Dr. Chi-Chao Hu. He's the founder and CEO. Now, he is joining us to talk about batteries for electric vehicles, but most importantly, their multi-strategy business model, which leans heavily on AI for battery research with their molecular universe application to help drones and other vehicles have the right batteries. Now, joining us from Ondas is Eric Brock. He's the CEO. Ondas builds drones like Optimus and counter drone systems like something called what they call Iron Drone. It targets drones as first responders and fully autonomous systems for governments and corporations. And from Micropolis, Fareed Al-Jawari, he's the CEO, is joining us. Micropolis is focused on providing small to full-size autonomous mobile robots for the UAE and the Middle East. Shawn, over to you.
Great. Thank you, John. Let's get started.
Well, everyone, welcome to our symposium. Fareed, how are you doing?
How are you? How you doing? I'm doing well.
Great. Everyone, this is Fareed Al-Jawari. He's the CEO of Micropolis. And I just want to ask him a couple questions to kind of get him going. And maybe the first one would be, why don't you give us 30 seconds on your company and how it fits in the drone space?
Happy to do so. So Micropolis is a vertically integrated company. Our mission is to automate and augment large operations using robotics, AI, and smart mobility technologies combined. So we came up with this business model where we're able actually to customize robots for our customers, like Dubai Police, Aramco, ADNOC, TransGuard. Those are like in different industries like oil and gas, security, logistics, facility management. We have so many customers. But what we did actually, we developed a mobility-specific platform with autonomous capability. And then we developed another control system for robotic part of the UGV. So now we can actually develop any kind of robotic functionality on top of the mobility specific platform and add AI layer to it. Now we have an intelligent device. So what we are doing actually, like when Boston Dynamic actually developing a robot that looks like a human, we are developing a robot that looks like a vehicle, like a car. So yeah, it's good for harsh environments, remote areas. Operations with labor-intensive issues, something like this. So it's a quite unique technology, and it's widely accepted by our customers, and actually it is in high demand.
Well, you were mentioning security and oil and gas. What do you think are the biggest opportunities going forward? Is it really security? Is that the biggest opportunity? Is it military?
Yeah, security is a big part of it, like surveillance, deterrence. These are very, very good applications, especially when we are using computer vision, AI models, like with facial recognition, behavior analysis. There's other two models we're developing called the suspect matrix and criminal logic, all based on Dubai Police big data. So those are very, very useful for law enforcement agencies, also for our other customers like National Guard with the border control. They're really, really useful. And especially when with law enforcement agencies, shortage in police forces and personnel, and that's a huge problem. The way they explained it to me that not everyone fit to be a policeman, and that is a big problem. Yeah, like they have a lot of candidates, they barely the acceptance rate is between 2 and 5%, which is a huge issue for them, and the cities are growing very fast. The dynamics of the demographic scene, they keep changing every now and then, especially with large cities like Dubai, for example. So that comes with a lot of challenges. Now, relying on robots with AI applications might be a huge help for them. Yeah.
Right. Now, to accelerate the markets that you're in, do you need more legislation? Do you need regulation? Do you need technology? What is the kind of the limiting factor that you see that's holding the market back?
The biggest limiting factor will be the public acceptance, the perception. That's the biggest problem, because when you put robots with a camera and AI in it, people will think they are gonna lose a part of their freedom, and it is not good. But of course it's not the case. We need to educate them. The second one is the legislation. Of course, especially when it comes to autonomous driving, most of the cities are not ready with their regulations. Only few cities. Dubai are doing a great job so far, but still, there is a legislation problem here. It might delay us a little bit. For example, other technologies let's say in the web space, you don't need a lot of regulations, not many. But when you deal with public safety, the governments, they take their sweet time actually to come up with good legislation.
Right. Now, you've heard about the bans in the U.S. on some of the Chinese drones. Do you see any of that sort of thing happening in the UAE at all?
I'm not sure, but yeah, the UAE is really quite strict with their policies, especially when it comes to safety and security, just like United States. And of course, if any manufacturer have history with data issues, of course they should be banned just for public safety. until they're proven otherwise. But I don't know if this will happen anytime soon. But I strongly actually support it.
Now, in terms of the biggest challenges to the market today, obviously you said acceptance is a big limiting factor. Are there
Yes.
any other challenges? I mean, I'm hearing from some people that, well, we need more investment, we need more growth money rather than seed money. What are you kind of seeing are other limitations and challenges for your industry?
Yeah, of course, investment is the biggest one, but the second biggest challenge is usually talent acquisition. Usually in this industry, it is completely new products, and usually you don't have we don't just focus on one specific specialization. We go with like mechanical engineering, mechatronics, electronics, embedded systems, power electronics, data science, software engineering, like everything, you know. So when you talk about, for example, autonomous systems, you want someone who work with the perception layer, someone who work with control systems, someone who works on navigation stack. It's a huge variety of talents. So this is where the challenge actually lies.
Well, great. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Fareed, thanks so much for being part of our symposium, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Well, Eric, how you doing? Doing good?
I'm very good, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. Look, everybody, we have Eric Brock here. He's chairman and CEO of Ondas Holdings, and we're going to put some questions to him to see what the experts know that we don't know. So, Eric, maybe if you could just give us a quick intro, a quick 30 seconds on you and your company and in place in the drone space.
Yeah, sure. So, I am the chairman and CEO of Ondas Holdings. We offer a portfolio of autonomous drone platforms, which are designed and deployed for aerial security, inspection, and intelligence. And of course, I'll dig into that a bit, I'm sure, in our conversation. The two primary platforms are firstly our Optimus system, and then we have what we call the Iron Drone Raider, which is used to protect from the threat of hostile drones. Again, both of these are fully autonomous systems. They're deployed as drone infrastructure. And what that means is we're installing drone docking stations at critical locations, and then those drones are remotely operated. So you have a remote command and control center. That command and control center can be located across the street, a mile away, or even 100 or 1,000 miles away. So in essence, this drone infrastructure is scalable. It's supporting fleets of autonomous drone operations. And again, ensuring the protection and security of critical and sensitive locations. And we do this in defense, homeland security, and public safety markets. We also do this for critical infrastructure and critical industrial assets operators. So, think about military bases and borders, or in major urban environments, you see law enforcement, fire, emergency responders deploying drone infrastructure. Then it extends to critical locations. So it's airports, it's data centers, refineries, and even maritime ports and many, many other locations. So it's a very big market. And if I could just come back briefly to the technology platforms, again, Optimus, think of that as installed autonomous infrastructure for ISR. So it's intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and emergency response missions. And that Iron Drone system is used to protect from, or it's a CUAS or counter drone system used to protect from a growing and really surging threat that is posed by hostile drones. So, with Iron Drone, we're doing that by using a net. So we're intercepting the bad drone with a net, and it's a built for purpose system for that. And then one more thing, John, I'll emphasize about Ondas and our systems is we are combat and field ready. So we're operational today, and that's a critical importance when you're thinking about the drone sector. These are very complex technologies. You need to be in position to deploy them at scale if you want to generate that revenue and cash flow, of course, which is all important of utmost importance to investors.
Well, speaking of revenue and cash flow, what do you think are the biggest opportunities for your product suite as it is today? Don't tell me about future stuff.
Yeah.
But where do you think are the biggest areas?
Okay, sure, of course. So um, our drone platforms that I just described are dual use. Okay, and what that means is whether you're securing a military base or a border, it's essentially the same job as you're undertaking to protect a data center, an oil refinery, or a maritime port. And of course, all of these critical locations are becoming more and more important. And I say that even from a DoD standpoint, I think today we're in a unique moment in time where critical infrastructure needs to be secured from both a cyber and physical standpoint because the threats to these important parts of our economy are unlike they've been before. So, in essence, we see demand strengthening everywhere, military and non-military. And that is because the technology is mature, the use cases and ROI have been validated. And if you think about specifically, for Ondas and our Optimus and Iron Drone systems, we're playing at the highest end of the market. So if you need security, critical security, that is 24/7. And these are the places where drone infrastructure is increasingly being deployed and adopted. So again, military and non-military markets are strong, but at the same time, I do want to highlight, and you read about this in the newspaper every day, it is quite clear that the military and homeland security sectors is where demand and orders are accelerating in a very meaningful way. With militaries, you have them reacting to rapid technology changes, and of course, there's an intense geopolitical environment here that we're responding to as well. So you're seeing these militaries really across the world transform their capabilities for these new requirements, and this is really right where we're sitting and well positioned for. We've been planning for this for a while. So demand is significant, and what that means for me, from my seat as a CEO, if we're constrained from a resource standpoint, that's personnel, it's supply chain, it's field support, right? How do we set up and sustain these programs? We're going to allocate our growth capital towards the federal and military markets because of that really intense demand growth. But at the same time, I do want to be clear, right? It's not just military and homeland security. We're seeing broad adoption. And I would highlight that in the security markets, you're seeing drone infrastructure being increasingly deployed in public safety markets. The term, the use case was typically described as drone as first responder, or DFR, and we're really seeing that market explode. And I'll just take another moment, if I could, John. You think about sort of, that public safety market. You've seen police and fire organizations. They've been deploying drone technologies for years now. And they're doing this quite simply because it helps save lives. But what they're gravitating for is historically, as they start to introduce that technology into these markets, you're seeing officers carry these drones to the crime scene or for respond to an emergency. And as they're getting more sophisticated and the technology is maturing, you're starting to see police increasingly deploy drone as infrastructure, as I described earlier, and it's really scalable. It's centrally operating DFR programs. So, in essence, we're addressing mega trends in military and homeland security, public safety, and we're growing at Ondas our internal infrastructure, our operating platform, so we can support the growth and delivery of these services to these really important markets.
Well, all these markets seem to be, growing quickly and accelerating. What could happen to even push it faster? I mean, I know obviously we had the executive order recently from
Sure.
Trump. Do we need more legislation? Do we need budget numbers? What needs to happen kind of next?
Yeah, great question. I'll come back to the Trump executive orders because they are critical and really important. But at the same time, I'm going to say, I certainly most investors, and I would see even guys in my seat, right, drone OEM service providers, we're just now realizing that the boom has begun, right? The market is accelerating now, and let's focus on the reasons why. So firstly, not firstly, I'll just say, think of it in terms of technology, customers, and then regulations. The technology that we're deploying and across the ecosystem, our peers, other components that are part of the infrastructure to deploy these technologies, you're seeing rapid maturation. And that includes, again, the infrastructure that's around airspace safety, for example. So becoming more and more productive, more and more scalable. You're also seeing systems like ours that are maturing that are bringing more and more autonomy, and importantly, reliable autonomy. And that's allowing us to remove pilots and other costs that support even greater scalability and adoption. So so as you've seen technology and infrastructure mature and ready to go, I just described how in the public safety world, this is true across most markets. Customers are advancing and becoming more sophisticated. They're accelerating that sophistication, and they're integrating these security and technology, excuse me, in these intelligence tools into their workflows. So, if you have strengthening technical safety and you're deploying this at scale, and you've got this customer demand that's really starting to take off. The last bottleneck is really, I say it's the last, but it was really the first, and now it's the last bottleneck, and that is regulations. And we see them becoming even more supportive of the steep growth curve I'm describing. And specifically to the Trump executive orders related to the drone industry, as you said, they were announced just a few weeks ago. I will say they're very substantive, and I do expect them to be a very significant accelerant. There's no question in my mind over the next 12 months that the FAA will be opening the skies, and this is super bullish. So, John, but there's one more factor that I think is really important for investors to understand. We have technology, we have customers, and now regulations are positioning. So you say, what else do you need? And I'll tell you, it's investment. Right? Investment is critical. We are going to see a massive investment cycle that's starting as well now. And this cycle is going to be a good decade, probably longer, because we're talking about markets that are in the billions of dollars of size. And that means there's going to be, a lot, right? More than a handful of big, important, and very valuable companies built in the coming years. And to do that, we're going to have to invest behind it, right? We're going to be moving from angel and venture capital funded, technology development programs to growth capital. And I think what I want to highlight is that investors in the public markets, they're going to be critical players here in deciding who the winners will be and in underwriting these critical aerial technology and services that are going to support economic and national security in the United States. So I think it's a really exciting time to take a look at the drone sector.
When you were talking about investments and a change in the environment, certainly, some of the Chinese companies have been big in the U.S. That looks like that's going to change. What is your thinking on the timing of that? Is that going to happen quickly, or is that going to take a while, given the predilection for U.S. manufactured drones?
Yeah. This is an important point. So, the Chinese drone technology providers are, obviously ahead, right, from both a portfolio standpoint of capabilities, the strength of those technology platforms, and the price points. So, there's competition everywhere, really. But at the same time, from my seat as CEO, I would say that's a bit of a distraction in a lot of ways. Because again, I'll just remind you, as I said earlier, this is early days in a booming sector. And I think as I'm thinking about the world from a competitive standpoint, for me and my peers in the United States, what we're really doing is challenging ourselves, right? It's really internal. How are we getting better and stronger every day to support growth? So what I'm saying is the competition is not just about, do you have the best drone? What we're really competing is how quickly we can build scalable operations, right? How can we deploy a sales team that's productive, meet customer needs, the field support, the supply chain? These are all critical factors to determine whether you're going to be able to build a valuable company. So, and again, demand is huge. So at the same time, again, China's topical, drilling down specifically to Ondas in sort of the dynamic, we face versus the Chinese competitors. We're not really seeing significant competition. They're there, but that's largely because we're not addressing what I would define as the mass market, right? Providing the critical security and services is really the highest end of the market with Optimus, again, the ISR, drone infrastructure. Then, of course, with Iron Drone being that counter drone system that has interception capabilities. These are really highly differentiated. So, as it relates to the Chinese competitors, I think the industry can get myopically focused on them, and when we should, again, be focused on just getting better every day and delivering what our customers want and need. So, one last thing to get back to where you started here, on a macro level, I think the Trump policies are going to encourage a lot of investment and growth in the U.S. drone sector. I think all day long, and this is underestimated because it's so daunting a task. How do we build the capabilities? How do we build the scale? How do we build the supply chain in the U.S.? And it is daunting, but there's no question in my mind that we have the talent. We have massive end markets here, and there's no reason that the U.S. drone sector cannot be highly competitive. And even from here, based on all the supportive policy and investment that's coming, lead growth from a global perspective. So again, I think we're going to be building some really big and important companies here in the coming years. And I'm not worried about competition if I can look out, past the, the very near term.
Right. Yeah. So maybe one final question, and you mentioned a number of things: investment, infrastructure, support, supply chain. What do you think are the biggest challenges that might be addressed in, say, the next 12 to 18 months? Is it really investment, or is it something else? Do you need a technology? Do you need better batteries? Kind of like, what do you think is the next big thing to come through in the drone space?
Yeah, great. And it really is where you started. It is on putting the business together, I'll make that observation. So I think the biggest challenge we have as an industry, and of course, I would say this is the same thing for Ondas, what we're facing head on, in real time is, transitioning from technology development to adoption, right? You're turning your business from a technology development program to a real operating company. And as they say, to use a phrase, this is not trivial. Doing this requires new talents. It requires new expertise. It requires intense business planning and execution. And, coming back to capital, you have to require that. You have to secure that capital to leverage that growth plan. So, for some additional context, we have across the industry had incredible talent working incredibly hard to get to where we are today. Many companies have died along the way, and of course that's natural. That's capitalism. But now we're in a place again where technologies are mature and markets are ready to adopt. Regulations are there, and I like to make a joke. Recently is that as an industry we're the dog that caught the bus. Right? We're working hard, so hard. Right? This takes many years to develop these capabilities that we have today that are mature. But now we have to build a business. Right? So. And the reality is most companies are going to have a hard time making that transition, into becoming that operating company. So if you have a single product platform or capability, as good as it is, it's going to be hard with a single revenue stream to support that investment, the OpEx that you need to scale a sales team, the supply chain, the field support capabilities. And of course, to do that, you have to, in a made in America world, make a Europe great again world, you have to do this. You have to localize it in all these major theaters, right? So that's a significant investment. And we have to be we have to be very efficient with our operating capital. And that's going to really, sort of force some important decisions as we're building scaled operators. And what I mean by that is we're going to see a very significant consolidation cycle in the coming years. I think it's sort of happening real time, and I think it's going to be awesome. Right? It's going to be great for customers and regulators. Think about it. They can't work, the customers and regulators, the FAA can't work with hundreds of small, poorly capitalized technology developers, right? It just doesn't work. These are critical markets. This is aviation. It has to be safe. You have to deliver this at a high level. So there's going to be consolidation. It's going to be great for customers and regulators. It's going to be great for the talent in the industry, which, by the way, our talent is exceptional. They're going to be able to join scalable operating companies. Of course, that's going to be very positive for income growth and equity. And most important in this, I'll say, and particularly for your audience, is investors. This consolidation is going to create wonderful opportunities for investors over the next 3, 5, 10 years, right? The winners are going to deploy capital. The winners, the folks who can deploy that scalable operating platform and leverage all that valuable technology, right? They're going to deploy capital at exceptional rates of return. There's going to be very high growth rates. And again, some really big and important companies are going to be created. So all of this is in motion now. The boom is here. And these challenges we talk about challenges, they're really opportunities. It's time here. We're going to see leaders emerge. They're going to go out. They're going to make it happen. And I do believe that you're seeing that in the marketplace today. So maybe that's, the place to, to give the last word that it's a great time to invest in the drone economy.
Well, great, Eric. Thank you so much. This has been super helpful. Welcome, Dr. Chi-Chao Hu, who's the founder, chairman, and CEO of SES AI. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you, John.
Thanks. And particularly, thanks for attending our symposium on drones and small unmanned vehicles. So maybe just to get us started, get us rolling, give us 30 seconds on you and your company and the autonomous drone and robotic solutions you kind of are looking at.
Sure. So we've been building these high energy density lithium metal batteries since 2012. And of course, high energy density is very valuable for drones applications. And then starting as early as 2017, we've been supplying these high energy density lithium metal batteries to a variety of drones applications. Some of them including high altitude pseudo satellites. These basically fly in the stratosphere and then powered by solar, and then need very high energy density batteries during the nighttime. And then also commercial use drones, aerial drones. We actually did a project to film dolphins off the coast of Jeju Island in South Korea a few years ago. And then we actually use a large drone to combat the strong winds on the ocean. So marine animal filming, wildlife protection, also forest fire. Earlier this year, we announced a partnership with Data Blanket. They also use these drones powered by our batteries to monitor. Back then, there was a forest fire in California, and now they're also using these drones for the flooding in Texas. So a variety of applications, and then also in addition to aerial drones, also land drones such as humanoid robotics. We also provide batteries to the humanoid robotics.
Now, you're moving into the lithium ion batteries and the 2170 form factor. How does that play into the drones and into the different markets?
Yeah, so there are two types of drones, the aerial drones and the land drones. Aerial drones care a lot about weight, what's called watt-hours per kg. So in that case, we use pouch lithium metal cells. Pouch lithium metal cells have the lightest weight. And then for land drones, such as an autonomous vehicle for food delivery or just any delivery vehicles or humanoid robot, they care about volume, watt-hours per liter. And then in that case, we will actually supply a 2170 cylindrical high silicon lithium ion battery. So the two different cells will be for different applications. Pouch lithium metal for aerial drones, and then 2170 cylindrical silicon for land drones.
You see. So in terms of the economics between the automotive and the UAM and the drones and the robotics markets, are they roughly the same or are they radically different?
Yeah, so for now, the market price for automotive is like sub $100 per kilowatt hour. Actually, it's moving close to more like $50 to $60 per kilowatt hour. But the market price for drones, and again, this is like commercial drones, is about $300 to $500 per kilowatt hour. And then some defense actually go to $600 to $800 per kilowatt hour. So for commercial and defense drones, the market price is significantly higher than EV.
Now, is that mainly because the big focus on weight, particularly with aerial drones versus automotive? I know weight's still important, but it's not as critical, right?
Yeah, it's a combination of drones really need higher, more premium batteries, and also for automotive applications, the battery is about 30 to 40% the cost of the car. So the cars are just really cost sensitive to begin with, whereas the battery for the drones is a really small fraction of the device or the operation. So it's much less cost sensitive.
And what do you see the biggest areas for growth in the battery market for drones, etc. I assume battery powered electric drones are just going to take over. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the aero drones for defense is a very exciting area. As we've seen in many theaters around the world, it's really the future as opposed to I think many militaries have come out and then stated that the future of aero combat is not going to be these super expensive jets, but more like these swarm drones, just thousands of the low-cost drones. So I think that's a really exciting area, but also just land drones for delivery could be food or medicine or emergency or underwater drones and humanoid robotics. I think the use of these drones will be almost everywhere.
Now, are you currently providing batteries to each of those three you mentioned, military, commercial, air, and underwater today?
Yes, so now it's primarily aerial drones, some defense, a lot of commercial, and then some in humanoid robotics. We're not providing any for the underwater applications yet, but hopefully soon.
And if you take a look at the US market, do you think there's anything in particular that accelerated? A lot of people in the industry are talking about they need to move from seed capital to growth capital. Obviously, money drives a lot of R&D. Do you see that way, or is there something else you think could really accelerate the US market?
I think if you look at defense market and the recent initiatives by the DoD, I think that is a really positive in terms of pushing U.S. grown drones companies, especially for defense applications. And I think on the consumer side, it's going to be hard to compete because DJI is still I think more than 70% of the market. But I mean, who knows if DJI gets banned? Then I think that opens up opportunities to new companies. But I think one thing we should do is a standardization of drones and drones components. And I think one thing that DJI did well is when you are 70% of the market, you can actually help standardize a lot of the components, which will help drive down the cost. But if DJI is banned, and then if we have lots of smaller drones, each uses different sizes, different specs, then it's really hard for this market to take off. So I think if there is an industry standardization of drones and components specs, I think that will help a lot. And I think there are companies in this industry in the US that are talking about a standardization of this of the components and the specs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, talking about DJI, I mean, you hear every once in a while they're going to ban them. The FAA is going to do this, the FEC is going to do this, or whoever is going to do what. The general feeling is that eventually DJI is not going to certainly be as prominent as they are in the US. But you talk to people in the industry and they say they've set a very high bar for cost performance. And now the users have that expectation. Do you think that the industry sans DJI can get to that level of price performance with, say, all US components?
I think if it's consumer applications, it's going to be hard because DJI has really delivered a pretty good product for that price point. But then if it's commercial use and defense, then it's very different.
Yeah, maybe that's the way it'll play out.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the drone industry? Is it technical? Is it legislative? Is it just investment? What do you see as the biggest challenge facing the industry today?
I think standards, setting standards and then raising standards. If you look at just in any country and the rise of any industry, like the rise of the EV industry in China and the rise of IT and consumer electronics industry in the US, in Japan, in South Korea, it all started with standards. And I think when the government or the industry sets standards, then companies will all build towards that standards. Then you don't end up with lots of fragmented situation, and then you have people that actually try to compete, and then once you have the same standards, whether it's performance specs or safety or whatever, then people will try to deliver the best products for the best price and still meet the specs. So I think a standardization of rules and components and specs in the industry will help a lot.
No, that makes a ton of sense, because if you can reduce the price and still produce a good product, you're just going to grow the market, and that's what everybody wants to see. Well, everyone, welcome Alan Evans of Unusual Machines. How you doing?
I'm doing good, John. I actually sit in the same room with you. This will be fun.
I know, it is kind of weird. Hey, thanks for really doing this. I really do appreciate it, because it's an area that's very interesting to see how much growth we could get in the next, 5-10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I guess growth. There's a market vacuum. DJI probably does 10 billion a year in the US, 15 billion a year in the US. So I think the growth is a lot faster than that. The market doesn't need to be made. The market's there, and now there's a vacuum.
Right.
So how fast can that market be transferred? That's a lot faster than growth.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just take a step back and tell us what your place is in the drone marketplace?
Unusual Machines, we really are focused on making parts for drones, particularly backpack-sized drones, specialty in FPV, first-person view. So all the sports drones or the racing or a lot of the stuff you see in Ukraine. And what we have is a consumer channel where people come buy all of it, and that acts as our first internal customer, where a lot of our new non-Chinese made in the USA parts, like our Brave F7 flight controller, we can hit the volume requirements to be really price quality competitive. So we're trying to be that tier 1 supplier to the US drone companies, where we can monitor the supply chain to create redundancy and just have it not be in China.
And so what do you think is the biggest opportunity for your company and the drone market you're in?
Really what you're seeing is the Chinese companies are sort of being kicked out for geopolitical reasons, and they do really great work, and there's replacing a whole lot of that, and that has been primarily dominated by DJI. So that's like the backpack to tabletop size drone category, and that marketplace is, like I said, $15 billion. And right now you're seeing a new cycle where the conflict in Ukraine, the conflicts in the Middle East, have sort of identified drones as a really important technology for the future of warfare. And so I think this fall, you're going to really start to see defense budgets come in and really push that category forward.
So do you see the defense market and the commercial market in the U.S. roughly the same size today? But growth may be different in the future?
I think the commercial market's bigger, but defense is more immediate. So you have so many drone companies, it's a wide open marketplace, no winners, not even too many real leaders that are obvious at this point in the smaller size category. And defense is going to be a winnowing function. If there are 50 companies now, there'll be 20 after the next 18 months, as there's consolidation and winners and losers. And of those 20, you'll then see them go after the commercial and consumer market.
So what do you think needs to happen next in the U.S. market to get it to accelerate? So we're going to have the defense budgets in October. Is that really it, or is there something else that we really need to accelerate the market?
First things first, government has to pass a budget, because then people inside the government can buy stuff. Then people inside the government need to buy stuff. Budgets roll over in September, so you'll see purchases here in August, September, hopefully, and then the new budget's in October. And after that, I think you're going to start to see winners and losers, and you'll start to see consolidation in the market. Because instead of 5 different drone companies having engineers all trying to make 5 different flight controllers, you should have 5 times as many engineers working on one flight controller. And so I think we'll see a positive aggregation or consolidation of the market, but not until after this defense cycle, because everybody thinks they're going to win. And so it's not till you find out who really wins and who's there that everybody will be in a position to, I think, consolidate effectively.
So with regard to the Chinese drones getting kind of pushed out, can you give us a little bit of color on how that happened, why it's happening, and maybe what is the next big thing? Is it legislation? Is it another executive order or what?
All that's already happened. I think what you see is, from the defense perspective, they said, oh no, what if something happens in the Straits of Taiwan? Well, if we can't get any of these tools, then we won't have any of them to use. So they want to create a redundant supply chain. In the same way, I think during COVID, we saw cars sitting on lots because there weren't chips available. So it looks a lot like the CHIPS Act to me, deglobalization for resiliency. And what we need to see next is a budget to be passed and orders. Like, the American Securities Drone Act was passed a few years ago. That says the government can't buy or fly Chinese drones. That goes into effect this December. Section 1709 was passed in the most recent NDAA. That says, hey, look, DJI won't get new FCC licenses, so it'll be a planned obsolescence over several years for them. So the legislation on creating the marketplace is done. Now the marketplace needs an injection of capital to cause capitalism to bubble and go to really drive that replacement.
Are we seeing some of that injection already?
Not yet. We expect it this fall, and I expect it to mostly be defense money. You're seeing a little bit of it, but nothing substantial. And I think once you see that injection, my hypothesis is that the markets will recognize that that's starting to go, and you'll then see energy come from the marketplace to invest in who they see as winners and drive consolidation and rapid scale up.
And maybe the last question is, what is the biggest challenge that you see for the drone industry today?
Chinese companies do an amazing job, and you're trying to replace a product that is amazing. And so there's a certain expectation from the user of price performance that is very hard to reach. And so it's getting to good enough as the biggest challenge.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much for this quick interview, and we'll have to wrap it up there.
So that will wrap it up for the first installment of our WTR Symposium Series, Eyes on Autonomy, Investing in Drones and Autonomous Vehicles. I'd like to thank the management from today's participating companies, including Unusual Machines, SES AI, Ondas Holdings, and Micropolis Holdings. Remember, we will have a second segment next week and encourage you to join us. Very exciting as we continue to look at autonomous vehicles and drones. Also, thank you, my equity research colleague, John Roy, for co-hosting with me today. Finally, a special thanks to the producer and editor of the Symposium podcast, my WTR colleague, Joe Brunetto. Thank you for listening, everyone, and don't forget to subscribe. We'd love to have you, as well as visiting us at www.watertowerresearch.com to stay up to speed on all the company's small cap written reports, podcasts, fireside chats, and conference schedules. As a reminder, that's open access to all investors, so check it out. We will see you next time for another WTR Symposium podcast. Have a great day.